Hello everyone, welcome and thank you. Sorry about that. All right, we'll start again. Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar, 60 Minutes About 360. I'm your moderator for today. My name is Agha, and I'm in charge of customer experience of our client-facing platforms, such as Media Express and Reuters Pictures. In late summer of this year, Reuters engaged in a partnership with Samsung, the very first of its kind, to bring 360 content to our global audience of professionals and consumers. Through Media Express, our platform where agency clients access content, and through Reuters.com and Reuters TV for our consumer audience. We'll learn more about that, but let me introduce our panel. We have members from our commercial, editorial, and engineering teams. We'll have a Q&A at the end, but I encourage all of you to ask questions using the tool in GoToMeeting. You can send us your question via chat or raise your hand and somebody will address your query. And without further ado, let us introduce the panel. We have with us Jess April. She's the head of strategic partnerships, one of the key members to bring this partnership to fruition. So we have Craig Hettich, manager of video production and technology, Eric Johnston, engineering director for Reuters TV, and Giat, the development manager for Reuters News Agency. So Jess, I'll start with you. Tell us about this partnership. I remember our excitement when the deal was confirmed and we had to deliver our first content set for an August 2nd launch immediately following Open Day for Olympics.
Sure, and thanks for having me on the panel. It was a very exciting partnership to embark upon. We did have a very tight timeline, but due to the fact that the Samsung technology is extremely portable and was easy for us to distribute globally, we were able to get cameras to over 27 countries around the world, employ our photojournalists, video journalists, and get together a staff that would be dedicated to producing VR content for Reuters and for our customers. And it was really important to us that we kick off with an event like the Olympics. It's a global event and very core to what Reuters embraces in terms of covering the world. And we wanted to cover the world in a 360 lens and using the VR technology. And it was really exciting, yeah.
That sounds incredible. So my first question, what were the deliverables from a partnership perspective? It seems to me that's the first of its kind for us. What was Samsung's expectations? How did you guys decide to ship the 100 cameras worldwide? What were your recommendations on where the cameras should go?
Yeah, Samsung was a great partner to us as a news organization in that they wanted us to create content that was true to Reuters. So they left it up to us to determine what we thought would be the best VR 360 content to create. And they were a great logistics partner working with our project management team to make sure that we were getting the cameras and the phones and the equipment we needed direct from their factories so that we could ship them globally to lots of different locations with limited, customs or tax issues, things like that. So it was I won't say it was easy because I think my my project manager would be a little upset with me, but it was doable, and I think that was what was most important. It was something that we knew we could execute and get off the ground in the time frame that we needed. And again, because Samsung wanted Reuters to be Reuters, we were able to leave the distribution up to our editors in terms of saying, where do you think the most interesting stories around the world should be captured? Tell us what countries and how many cameras you'd like us to ship to those locations, and make sure that they were in the right hands to begin creating content for the program on time.
That's a great point about Reuters being Reuters, right? And I remember when we launched, the first video that we launched with was the Srebrenica massacre and grave digging, which was one of the top performing videos that we completed. So with that, I turn my attention to Craig Hettich from Editorial. Craig, before we go into the complexities of the workflows and how to bring 360 content to life, talk to me about what makes for compelling 360 content.
Well, I think it's just really about immersion. You know, with 360 experiences, what we can do in an editorial sense, what you can do as a acquiring this content is bring people to places that they would never really be able to be at, and then immerse them in it. So any sorts of environments where you can put on a 360 goggle or take your screen and spin it around, and you can be immersed in an environment that you would never get a chance to see or be at, kind of lends itself really well to VR. So, you know, you mentioned, Srebrenica, being inside of a grave being dug and seeing what it's like to be involved in that environment. And there's countless examples of various content we produced over the years, or over this year, where we took you to places that you would never be able to get to, you know, a market in Thailand where a train runs through it. I mean, I could go on and on with the various examples, but that's essentially, I think, it's somewhere where you can tell it's an immersive experience, and the story is very much the environment that you are viewing.
Exactly, the immersive experience. I wonder how many of our clients have experienced or dabbled around with VR at all. Very soon, our panelists are going to put up a poll for our clients to respond to if you have actually experienced in VR. Craig, talk to me a little more about the complexities of getting content from various parts of the world. For this specific initiative, I know you were leading it, and New York was sort of the hub for all production. But how did you make this all happen, from Bosnia to Thailand to back to New York and then around the world again?
Well, it was a very group effort. It wasn't just, so my role was primarily with handling the post-production. So we had the cameras distributed out to our photographers, some videographers, but mostly photographers across the world. So one, they would have to shoot the content, and then they'd have to get the content back to us in New York, where we would do all the post-production. Because of the type of camera we used and the nature, it recorded a single file.
Can you specify what the specific camera was?
Yeah, it was the Samsung Gear, and the camera, the way it shoots, it has two lenses, and it produces a single video file, and essentially that video file has two spherical images. And so those two images have to be stitched together in order to create the equirectangular 360-degree image. And I'm not going to get too much into the technical details of it. So that file is compressed when it's recorded, and so into a pretty high compression rate. So they're large files, but they're not super large files. So we were able to use our network of some technology, the file acceleration, so we could have people from around the world submit the files. Now, if they shot a lot, sometimes they would be submitting them overnight. And other times it would be faster if they didn't shoot a whole lot. And the files would arrive in New York, and then we would do the stitching here in New York. And the reason for that is sometimes if you have a lot of movement based on camera positions, some of the stitches didn't work as well as others, and we would have to apply some special software techniques to stitch them. But the majority of the time, we could stitch it using Samsung software on the Samsung phone, and then then the files would be ready for editing. And the reason we liked the format was because we could get right to the editing as quickly as possible. So we could get over all the technical hurdles, get right into the editorial side, where we try to say, okay, what is this story telling us? What's important here? What really is engaging to the viewer? And then we could focus on that and figure out, how do we produce this? Do we need to have somebody talk about it? Do we need, do we want to hear from somebody from the location? Do we want to just do a voiceover? Do we don't need a voiceover? This is such an immersive experience. We just want to put this out as it is. So those are we'd move on from the technical things and move right into the storytelling and figure out how to tell a story. And oftentimes we were in communication with whoever shot the story throughout the process, finding out more information about where they were, more details about the event. I mean, so we'd go back to them to get more information that would inform us on how to produce the video.
Thanks, Greg. And before we get into the technicalities, what is the average or generally acceptable duration of these video files that, in your opinion? Like how long should they be?
Well, that is completely, that is, you mean like the final video, or do you mean
That's a tricky question, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't tell you, because I'm sure you could make a 3-hour-long 360-degree documentary that's very immersive. So I can't tell you that. That's totally dependent. We found in our experience for what we were delivering, we found that our stories range from anywhere to 45 seconds. That's on the really short end, to generally 2 to 3 minutes at the longer end. But most stuff was generally 1.5 minutes or so.
All right, thank you very much. Now, with the size, your comment about size, there are big files and then there are super big files. I turn my attention to Eric Johnston and Giat, the engineering gurus who made this possible for us. Eric, Tal, thanks again for joining. Question number 1 for you. So I know when we started this, there are few players that can make this happen. I know you need a special player to be able to render the content that is 360 capable. So at some point, one of you guys made the decision that you will develop your own player. I believe that was you, Eric. So can you talk to us about the player and the technology?
Sure. So on the product I work with is Reuters TV, and obviously we're very concerned with streaming video to end users both on mobile, desktop, and set-top boxes. And so, this opportunity to start looking into VR and 360 video presented itself at the beginning of the summer, and we found it to be a very interesting summer distraction from our usual day-to-day development work. And in kind of evaluating the players that were available out there, we didn't find that any of them gave us the level of customization and just kind of support that we wanted. So we found a few options and ended up developing our own HTML5 player for the web, and then customizing a public open source version of a player Google has put out for both iOS and Android. But what doing that gave us a lot of control over the user experience, the UI, and it also allowed us to make a number of tweaks in terms of the bit rates that we supported and presented based on the capability, the power of the user's machine or mobile device. And so, one thing that we really found is in this development, since it is so new, it requires a lot of experimentation and iteration, not only because it's something users have frequently never experienced before, so they're unfamiliar with how to navigate, what they're actually looking at, and so we made a few UI tweaks as we went along to make sure that it was obvious to users how they could jump into this experience, as well as device support it varies quite a bit from device to device, from browser version to another browser version, depending on the version of Windows you're on, the power of your machine. So there's just a lot of variables there that forced us to kind of re-examine some of our assumptions about how we should stream this and how we can optimize that experience for a user given the device that they're actually on.
Excellent. Yeah, I know there was a lot of experimentation. Can you talk to us a little bit about speed and how network connectivity affects this? Because there was a lot of testing around it, and I want to make sure that our users understand the complexities behind this.
Sure. So when you're dealing with this 360 video, as Craig explained a little bit earlier, it's not your usual 1080p resolution. You really have to kind of jump up to much higher resolutions to get the 360-degree view of everything. You're not simply looking at a flat, static camera angle. And so even though the user may not be seeing all of those pixels at any given time, you still have to deliver them so that when they're swiveling around or looking up, you can show them that full view. So the resolutions and the bit rates we're dealing with here are much higher than you normally have with regular video. So that's, of course, one consideration. The user's connectivity can be a severe constraint on what you can deliver. But the second is, of course, as I mentioned before, the power of the device, because effectively what you're doing, the video stream itself is delivered as kind of a 2D rendition of things, and then the player is responsible for wrapping that 2D representation on a sphere, and then allowing the user to navigate from within that sphere to look around. So that wrapping action takes a fair amount of processing power to accomplish. And so what we had to do is essentially build into the player a way to observe the effective frame rate that the browser is able to render the view, and kind of drop down a notch if we see that the player is dropping too many frames, or so it's definitely something that you have to account for to make sure that the user has a reasonable experience no matter what device they're on. Obviously, there are certain minimum requirements in order to do this at all, but you don't want to try to deliver too high a bit rate, too high a resolution stream on a device that can't even support that. You can still drop down a few notches to provide what is still a reasonable experience, but it's a matter of just kind of observing what's going on with the user, with the player, and making sure you're delivering the appropriate rendition.
You make it sound so easy. You make it sound really easy, and I want to turn to Tal for a bit. Tal, so Eric just gave us a very detailed background on the consumer experience. You obviously had an additional challenge there to turn this around for agency clients worldwide. So how did you manage to do that in such little time? Can you talk to us specifically about the options that we have provided for our clients to utilize this content?
Yeah, so traditionally we deliver videos for our customers, not at that quality and not 360. So we provided two options. One, that they can download and later upload to social media and stuff like that if they want. Or we provided the player that Eric's team built, so they can basically just take an embed code and embed it on their website, which will be very fast and easy to integrate. They don't have to fuss with the technology. We have all the streaming hosted on a CDN that we provided them, so they basically just have to copy-paste stuff to their website, and they'll have a player running with analytics.
So it seems like my understanding is that about 40% of our clients have dabbled with VR in some capacity, but 60% has not. So I think from a client perspective, extremely beneficial to have the embed capability, to just use our player and run it on their own property.
I think it's the best way to start, just to have it in, and then as you learn the technology and want to do something maybe more custom, you can download and build your own. So you have the two basically paths.
And have you, while you were experimenting with this, did you come to a realization that there are great players out there? Or I know that some of our clients and some of the other publishers that I've talked to there, everyone is building a variation of their own player. So is that the recommended approach in terms of build versus buy?
Well, I think we looked at some players, the Google player, player from other companies. I think the problem is if you want to, as Eric says, customize something, or if you think that something with the experience is not as well, like the angle that the video is too narrow, or stuff like that, that we tweak, you don't have much option when it's a commercial player that you don't control the code. So that's why I think a lot of people, and it's pretty new field, so there are not a lot of kind of like industry standards, and that's why we opted, and I think a lot of people would opt to maybe do something custom.
And this is I guess this is a question for both you and Eric, and I guess Jess as well. Now that you have built this own player and we've seen usage, and I'll talk at the end about some of the customer feedback, is it possible to license this player that you and Eric have built? Can we license it for our media clients, and so they can leverage this technology and not have to go through the hassles of building this again? Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly from a technical perspective, there's nothing preventing that. Just from, not to get too deep into it, we support both HLS, which is a streaming protocol, adaptive bitrate streaming protocol that Apple kind of standardized, as well as the newer MPEG-Dash protocol that Google, Microsoft, and others are pushing. So we're fairly robust in what we support. We do have minimum browser requirements. You have to be on one of the latest versions of Google Chrome, Firefox, or IE. But beyond that, it's a fairly straightforward integration, just a simple embed. We don't offer too much in the way of customizing the skin at the moment, but certainly if it were productized, that's something we could do.
All right, so the short answer is yes. The long answer is almost yes. So that's great. Now, I don't want to make it sound too simple, so going back to Tal and Craig, can you walk us a little bit through just the evolution of some video journalists in the middle of the world have a camera, they take some video, what is the next step? Is it, and I know there are questions from the audience as we speak around stitched versus unstitched. What, I know our clients want stitched, what's the difference? Can you explain that to me in normal English?
Well, I think, the camera splits an unstitched video, so if you look at it in a regular player, you'll see like two videos going together from two angles. The stitching is what makes it one file. It is a 360, and then you can play with a dedicated player. Other than that, I think we had some challenges because the videos files are big and we needed to stream them. You can't just like put the video as it is on a CDN and expect it to have a normal streaming performance. We had some challenges with the streaming because of the high quality of the video. Like, for example, Amazon transcoder did not support it. We had to go to external providers. We had to switch providers in the middle to make a more robust solution. But in terms of the challenges, I think these are the challenges that you'll face if you want to do an end-to-end solution, from like taking a shot to actually distributing to a lot of people. Of course, you can go via the route of social network, which is kind of the shortest path, but then you don't have full control.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of our clients using the content on social. Facebook has a player. I'm not sure if any of the other networks have, and YouTube obviously has a player, but I'm not sure if Instagram, you can leverage their player for the slideshows. But yes, some of the clients have used on social. We've used it on social quite a bit ourselves. Their player is robust, but yeah, obviously the customization has limitations. So, Craig, from an editorial perspective, what type of suggestions and feedback would you give our audience today if they wanted to set up their own shop for VR?
Well, I would say, you're going to start with finding a camera that you want to use, and something that you're comfortable with. The Samsung Gear 60 is very approachable because it's small. It has all technology, all cameras, they all have their own limitations. Again, the advantage of the camera is it's going to record the two spherical lenses, and then they're recorded into a single file. So it's easy to transmit that file, whether it's stitched or not. That was one of the advantages for us, is somebody could say, I shot 4 videos and it's 4 clips. Even if it's not stitched, they can send it to us and we could stitch it. You can also stitch it in the field if you have a Samsung phone. And it could be stitched, and then those stitch files can be sent. The problem we found with that was sometimes the stitching wasn't up to where we wanted it, so we preferred to get the raw files and stitch them. They're also a little bit more compressed, so they're a little smaller, even though they're the highest raw quality than the stitched versions, because they convert from H.265 to H.264, and I won't get into that, but just higher compression. And they are mostly 4K files, so they're pretty large. So your question had to do with what I would recommend. So and if you compare that to like a GoPro rig, the problem with a GoPro rig, it's not a problem. It's just you get more resolution. If you have 6, 7 GoPro cameras on a rig, you now have 7 files. So you're organizing those files and making sure they're all named properly and whatnot, and hopefully you have a rig that records them all at the same time, and then you bring those in, and now you've got to stitch 7 files together, and there's tons of software out there to help you do that, but that is time-consuming. It requires some expertise in stitching, and that's for journalism. That's it changes the game, because if you want to get a story out quickly, it's really hard to do that. With the gear, we were able to do that. On some occasions, we were able to turn. We actually had somebody in New York in the field shoot something, come back to the office, and within an hour, that story was on Media Express. That would not happen with a GoPro rig with 7 cameras. The amount of time it would take to stitch. So that's a consideration. So the types of stories you want to tell, if you want to do breaking news, obviously you want to go with probably something that's easier to stitch. And then, setting up, a post-production environment. It's good to have, ways of viewing the content in 360. Various software allow you to watch it, and GoPro has a player that you can put these files in and look at them on your desktop. But obviously, if you can get them out into a device so you can watch them in a headset, it's very helpful. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting mix between professional and consumer type technology, and how you enhance the video. Audio is very important. There's certain challenges with the audio on the camera, because it's kind of picks up everything, and if you want to have an interview, you're obviously going to have to bring that audio in separately or record it separately. And then the problem of shooting in general, of you being in the experience. So with 360, if you don't want to be in, either you got to be literally right under the camera, meaning you're holding it over your head, or you're got to hide, or put the camera somewhere where you're not going to be, otherwise you're going to be in the experience. All sorts of challenges there. And I mean, I could go all day about all the sorts of things we discovered as we started doing this, but I think it's not all video editors. Once you have a stitched file, it's essentially, to a video editor, a flat file. And there's plugins, or and some Premiere has it built in. You can look at the video. You can edit this just like a regular video. The considerations are different, because in a VR environment, you can't cut like you would with a regular video, because in a regular video, you're focusing people's attention on what's in that frame. In VR, you want people to explore. You want them to experience what's happening around you. So you have to keep things up much longer. So you can't do quick cutting. It's more about placing people in a logical environment to next logical environment, where they can then look around and see where the action is and what's going on.
That's a really good point about not having to focus on one frame, just allowing the consumer or the viewer to be able to explore. Quick question on, I know you mentioned one point around having something shot and being available in Media Express in an hour, which is quite remarkable from a 360 perspective, but in a breaking news environment, I know that some of the content available on Media Express or Reuters.com, if you see it, most of it is I would consider would fall in sort of the evergreen category. That said, how far away do you think we are in covering breaking news in in almost real time. Reuters is known for speed for all of our content. We're often the first to go. So is VR ready to be brought into the breaking news space as it stands today, or do we have some time to catch up?
Well, it already is. There is already live streaming technology out there for 360. So there are already people streaming, events in 360. The quality issues are obviously prevalent, but it's pretty amazing that that's already out there. So you can. This has been going on for over a year, I believe. That there's certain organizations that have actually streamed events, and so from a live perspective, there's technology out there that allows you to do that. As the cameras evolve and better cameras evolve, and they start doing the stitching, eventually, my guess is inside of the camera, you will have incredible, probably pretty amazing speed, where it'll be the ability to get the files already stitched right out of the camera. Now you just, it's the edit and away it goes. It's no different than any other video production. So yeah, breaking news is something that breaking news is something that I think is just, it's already kind of there, but it is really right around the corner.
Great, thank you so much for that. All right, before I turn over to the audience for some Q&A, I'll give you a little fun statistic. The Usain Bolt photo from the Olympics slideshow that you did was the top performing in terms of usage across agency clients, and I believe also from Reuters.com. So my question to all three of you, or all four of you, is what was your favorite piece of content on what's been covered so far? Kyle, why don't you go first?
I liked the bees guy, which was kind of coming this week.
Oh, the bees guy that's coming this week. Oh, you're going.
It came, I think, this week or last week. I kind of like the angles there. And
okay. Craig, what about you?
I'm too close to this stuff. I can't pick a favorite. I'm sorry. There's so many examples. Some of this, I can give you a few. Like a simple one is, we had a camera as a Russian rocket being launched, and the photographer did a great job locking the camera down, because all the other cameras, you see them all get blown away, but our little 360 camera manages to survive. That's a very amazing experience. But I like a lot of the daily life stuff that you don't, that we don't see, that you don't or get to experience, and you can see them in photos. But if you put on a headset in 360, it's really quite an amazing experience. And we recently did one about the it's a certain the grazing season in the mountains of southern Poland. They have a they bring the sheep in to be sheared, and they call it like twice a year, and it's called Hettich. And it's just this incredible visuals of sheep running through the middle of this town, and traffic stopped, and it's beautiful imagery, and it's a compelling story to watch how these sheep come in, and it's a slice of life that I've never experienced. So it's really immersive.
All right, I get that you can't pick one. Jess, what about from you? Okay, I'm going to move on to Eric, because I think Jess is having some microphone issues.
I thought the Thailand marketplace one was very cool. It just kind of gave you a sense of what life is like kind of day to day over there, and it was just very colorful and so much action going on. I just thought that was really cool to explore.
Excellent. All right. Now, without further ado, I will open this up for Q&A. I know we had some questions that were already addressed. John, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yep. How about asking how our partnership with Reuters is sort of different from what the New York Times is doing with their VR?
So I can actually answer that for you, John. That's a very good question. I think there are many partnerships that are happening, not just with Samsung, but multiple technology companies. I know Samsung has done one with the Times, I believe also one with NBC. But I think what differentiates our partnership with some of the other publishers is the fact that we're able to do this for a B2B as well as a B2C environment. And we are able to provide all of our media clients across the globe with this fascinating content that's being produced on a daily basis. And at the same time, the Reuters TV audience and the Reuters.com audience across the globe is able to leverage and enjoy the content as well. So I think that's the uniqueness that we bring to the table, in comparison with other publishers. But
I would also quick bites, and it's meant to be kind of on a everyday basis so that you get something every day. Whereas some of the stuff that we're producing takes a little bit more time. It's a little bit more feature-based, and we're trying to tell more global stories from this interesting 360 level. So I'd say that every publisher is trying to break into this space, but they're trying to be unique to their own voice and how they tell stories. And for Reuters, I think what was exciting for us was to be able to do some feature-based, calendar-based stories, which we don't always get the chance to do as a breaking news operation.
Thank you, Jess. View all the content that's available. You can also view it at Reuters.com. And lastly, there will be a